So A2 Milk have reported their results in early August 2020, and then a couple key executives have offloaded their shares along with a recent announcement. All of this have contributed to a significant drop in share price since August 2020. In this video, let's break down those events and then look at A2's valuation to see if A2 is worth your time. Before we get started, this video is recorded one day before the Mid-Autumn Festival. In my culture, we call Mid-Autumn Festival 中秋节, and this is a time where we do family reunions and also have mooncakes. I won't go into the origin story of the festival, but this is a great opportunity to leverage to give your family, friends, or loved ones an extra hug or a kiss because this year has been really turbulent. So, happy Mid-Autumn Festival. This video is not financial advice, and if you do learn something new, consider gently smashing that like button right there because that would mean the world to me. Without further ado, let's go! Full disclosure, I don't have a position in this company. As of recording this video, A2 is trading at $14.59 with $10 billion worth of market capitalization. Their 2020 financial year report was released on the 9th of September, and here are a few highlights that's really worthwhile mentioning. Since the pandemic, there was a pantry stocking of infant nutrition in Q3 of the 2020 financial year across online and resellers. That has certainly contributed to their 32% revenue growth compared to the 2019 financial year. At the time of the annual report release, there were already observations that since international travel is largely suspended, the Daigou channel will be materially impacted. Daigous essentially mean buying on behalf of someone else, and this is a common occurrence, especially in the Chinese community, that you will pay someone to buy something overseas and then bring it back to you. If we zoom into the results bit, we can see that the China label products have grown by more than double compared to the 2019 financial year. And it's important to know that the China label range of products, according to A2, are positioned as super premium in higher tier cities in China. On top of that, it's really good to see that the China-based channels are strengthened to become 48% of total infant nutrition sales for A2. Because ultimately, this portion of revenue is directly selling to China, whereas a portion, or you can argue that a bigger portion of the ANZ pie is ultimately relying on the Daigou reseller channel. And if international travel is severely impacted, I wonder how much of this can they still keep in the 2021 financial year. If you zoom out, A2 Milk has been an absolute ASX darling, growing their revenues by 50.9% compounded annually since 2014. Simply put, Chinese consumers really love their products, and their financials clearly demonstrates that point. With no debt and almost $800 million worth of cash, they should have no issue in the short to medium term to withstand any external shocks. Not to mention, they have the capacity to spend a little bit more in capital expenditure just to get involved in manufacturing capacity. These financial results are incredibly positive. So then why did A2's share price decline by almost 20% since they've posted their results? In my opinion, there are two major factors that have contributed to A2 Milk's substantial share price decline. And the first one is their insider selling a significant portion of their shares. And number two is the recent update on the contraction of the Daigou reseller channel. Now, there's a significant difference between an exec and a co-founder just selling off a bit of their shares to lock in some wealth. But the proportion of shares sold by A2 Milk's insiders tell a completely different story. Just to make life a little easier, Simply Wall Street has an ownership tab where you can see who bought shares and who sold shares. So let's start with the relatively tamed offloading first. Now, David Hearn is the current chairman and Jeffrey is the previous CEO of A2. David sold 20% of his shares for $4.6 million and Jeffrey sold off 25% of his shares for $2 million on the 27th of August at $18 a share. And then you have Peter Nathan, which is the APAC CEO of A2, sold off 88% of his shares for $13 million at $18 a share. Now, I am sure that they have their own reasons for offloading the shares, but this is such a significant amount and it usually triggers a flow-on effect with more active fund managers like Wilson Asset Management. As a result of the significant amount of insider selling, Wilson Asset Management have exited A2 completely after they have sold their shares. But I do want to remind you that the more passive funds, like for example BlackRock and Vanguard, are not likely to move because they're tracking an index like ASX 200 or ASX 300. So the proportion of ownership will naturally change with the share price. So to plot the event just to see how that have impacted the share price, the first sharp decline came from the insider selling on the 27th of August 2020, and then the second sharp drop really came from the announcement by A2 that because of the shutdown in Victoria, their lucrative corporate daigou sales channel was severely impacted. Now, A2 have also mentioned that the disruption will continue for the remainder of the first half of the 2021 financial year, but they are still confident enough to provide guidance, which is really great to see. Just for sanity's sake, let's look at some basic valuation metrics to see whether A2 is worth your time. Now, because Bob's is commonly compared with A2, this is a great chance to put them side by side just to show you what different stage companies actually look like. Now, as we all know, Bob's is an early stage company compared to A2 Milk. A2 is a lot more mature as it stands, and as of recording the video, Bob's is trading at 75 cents per share with a $450 million worth of market capitalization. Now, whereas A2 is trading at $14 per share with approximately $10.8 billion worth of market cap. Now, the first thing I want to draw your attention to is the gross margin. Now, as you can see, A2 Milk have a significantly more mature gross margin at 56% compared to Bob's Australia's gross margin. Now, that being said, Bob's Australia have improved their gross margins for consecutive years over the last few years. So it'll be really good to see where the gross margin is next year. And if we look at the trailing 12-month revenue growth rate, A2 Milk is growing very, very fast at 33% over the last 12 months, whereas Bob's Australia have grown their revenue by about 17%. And if we adjust the EV revenue by that growth rate, we get a 0.2 for A2 Milk. And that essentially means for every unit of revenue growth, you're paying 0.2 EV revenue. Now, whereas on the other hand, for Bob's Australia, for every unit of revenue growth, you're paying 0.43 EV revenue. Now, if we take a look at A2 Milk's historical price to earnings ratio, the average PE ratio is about 53 to 54 over the last 5 years. And compared to the recent price drop, you can see that the PE ratio is about 31 to about 30. So you can make another observation there that they are trading below at the historical price to earnings ratio. From a valuation standpoint, I personally don't believe that it's enough to look at a simple historical PE and also a comps table to make an educated observation. But A2 Milk is getting a new CEO with extensive experience establishing manufacturing capabilities in China. And because of that, I think it's worthwhile researching more into A2 Milk. So what do you think? Am I being overly optimistic or too pessimistic? Talk to me in the comment section below because I would love to know what you think. Now, if you want to be part of my fortnightly Q&A and also access to some additional content pieces, not to mention see my video script and also my research as well, consider supporting this channel via Patreon. Nonetheless, it already means the world to me that you've watched this video all the way to the end. So remember to gently smash that like button and also subscribe to my channel, click onto the bell so that when I release future videos, you'll be the first one to know. And of course, Otto will always do the honors and see you very, very soon.